stress. And I am hopeful that this program will give you the opportunity to enhance your overall understanding of information provided to you. Because information is power. And today I am lucky enough to have Selena Blotz, and she's a certified nurse practitioner from Healthiest Hospital on board today. Welcome.
Thank
Selena.
you.
It's such a delight to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and you are a nurse practitioner at Healthiest, and she took time out of her busy schedule to come on board here to get this information out to our viewing audience. And so everyone can learn a little bit more about stress.
Something that we all encounter.
Yes, we do. So we can go ahead and embellish a little bit to our viewing audience about stress.
Sure. Well, stress is really an individual's response to a perceived threat for their health and well-being. Determined that there's this imbalance between what we're faced with and our physical and our psychological capacity to encounter this situation. And researchers have actually come up with a simple but common sense model for understanding our reaction to the demands of life. They have found that whenever we are faced with a stressful situation, a crisis or a problem, that we rapidly assess the situation in our minds and then we react. First, we kind of appraise the extent of the situation, really how threatening or dangerous the situation is to our lives. And then after we appraise it, we really look at how we're able and capable to handle it to the extent of our, our capacity, our personal situation. So really, in other words, we subconsciously take into account how bad the situation is and whether we feel comfortable of being able to deal with it or not. So really, common sense does tell us that if you see the situation as a catastrophic event or a problem, and you're incapable of handling it, then you really will crumble under the weight of the pressure of that particular problem or situation.
Because we all deal with stress in such a different way. Some of us, it just runs off our shoulders. Other of us worry and worry and worry a little bit more. And there's a few people that actually even have what I want to say, ulcers.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
How we work with things like that. And I know that there are primary, 3 sources of stress. And I'd like it for you to go into a lot more detail with our viewing audience so they understand it a little bit better. Sure.
As we all know, change is constant in our life. I mean, it's always happening. We don't control it. Although change in and of itself is not the cause of stress, the thoughts that we have about that change process or adapting to that change really is in our control and really can be the source of stress. After all, we are the master of our own thoughts. So really the 3 sources of stress are the environment, our body, and our thoughts. The environment, if you think about it, really is constantly changing. There's the demands of catastrophic events. There are situations such as interpersonal relationships. There's work demands, there's traffic. I mean, there's all these different things. Some of those situations in the environment we can change. For instance, always driving to work and getting stuck in traffic all the time. Well, leave a little early, leave a little bit earlier, that type of thing. The other source of stress, our body, is something that we can change some aspects of it or control some aspects, but then there's some parts of it that we really can't change. For instance, just those physiological changes in our body, such as hormone fluctuation. I mean, those of us or people who have had adolescent teenagers know how that individual has changed in response to those hormones that are fluctuating in their body. Or a midlife woman who's going through perimenopause. There's also those fluctuating hormones that occur in her body, and that's something she can't change. She can't control that. Aging, that's another thing. But there's also things that we can change that affect our body and the stress within it, such as improper nutrition, lack of sleep, exercise or lack of. These are all things that really can affect the stress response. And the last thing, as I mentioned, the 3 sources, the environment, our body, and our thoughts, the thoughts, we really truly have the most control of this. Because as I mentioned before, our brain interprets message from the environment at all times. We evaluate the situation, determine can we handle it, can we not handle it. And if we constantly view a situation as a challenge, or excuse me, if we view it as a threat versus a challenge, we typically won't feel like we have the resources to handle it. Stress-producing thoughts are catastrophic, they are black and white, they are overgeneralized, they're over-personalized, and they're often supported by few facts. Let me give you an example of how a thought can create a lot of stress. An individual, one of my clients, was walking down the hall and encountered her boss. And she acknowledged her boss acknowledged her, but there was not a whole lot of engage or interaction as far as conversation.
Sure. They're probably both really busy.
They're probably very busy. But my client viewed that situation, because her boss pretty much just kind of walked past her, as, oh my, is there something wrong? Am I not doing a good job? Oh, what happens if I'm not doing my job and perhaps I might lose my job? And what would happen then? And her simple thought of her boss not engaging in a conversation with her dominoed it into this catastrophic event.
Sure, how we make stories up in our head.
Absolutely. That's exactly it. And I refer to it as taking a snowflake and making a snowball out of it.
Yes.
So this client basically just took this lack of interaction with her boss as losing the job, needing to update her resume, looking for a new place to live, selling her house. You know, well, just in and of itself, that is stress-provoking thinking. So again, although the occurrence of stressful situations is inevitable, it's a fact of life, we're all going to encounter it, one that we don't have a lot of control, but what we do have control over is how we respond or how we react to that stress. 95% of stress is self-induced. So to sum it up, a stressor is not stressful unless you deem it to be stressful.
Wow. You know, and I know